How's everyone going? I'm just going to test the sound, see if we're working okay. I think we're doing okay. Let me know if you can hear me or if you can't. How's everyone going? Yeah, I think that's the sound anyway. Okay. All right, today we're going to be talking about brain speed. 3 comments that I got, so I thought I'd talk about that. Brain speed, post-alcohol boredom, and regretting the hurt, or regretting the hurt that you've caused maybe when you've been drinking alcohol. If you haven't subscribed already, click on the subscribe button. I don't know whether it's going to really help us out. We're trying to get to 50,000 subs. We're almost there. So maybe they'll send me a check for 50 grand. I don't know, but I don't think so. But I think it helps. Anyway, we're trying to get to that 50,000. If nothing else for my ego than anything else, you know. If you want to comment live on the videos, on these live videos, then you have to click on the join button down below if you want to ask a question or anything while we're live. So, the first one I want to talk about is just that brain speeding when you have stopped drinking alcohol. You know, when I'm talking about this is a comment that somebody gave, and they basically said, when you talk about, hold on, I've lost the comment now. 1 second. We're still not really organized on these things. I set up the software today and it said, oh yeah, why don't you update the software? So I did, and now I can't find our logo or anything like that, but there you go. That's the way of it. Yeah, this one was from Relax with Captain Dust, and he says, when you talk about how your brain speeds up when you're off alcohol or slows down when you're on alcohol, I imagine watching a YouTube video at 1.5 versus 0.5. Is that kind of what you mean? Sort of. I think it's a good analogy, but I think a better analogy for what I'm talking about is if you take a computer software, and you know you've got all kinds of things that you can do with a computer, a PC anyway. You know, you can have the best type of RAM. You can increase your video card. You can increase your overall memory. You can increase the processing speed of the computer. And you've also got the speed that any information is going to start coming into the program or into the computer. So let's say that you've got the top of the range Wi-Fi connection. Now, if you've got a great computer and you've got a shit Wi-Fi connection, then it doesn't matter how good your computer is. It doesn't matter how fast your processing speed is. It doesn't matter how good your graphics card is. Information is going to come in slowly, and it's going to be processed slowly. And the same is the opposite way around. If you've got a shit computer, and it doesn't matter how fast of an internet connection you've got, you know, the software itself is going to slow down. So for me, it's having a drink, or the drinking brain is like having a slow internal processing. You know, everything that you do, this is something that you're causing for yourself. You know, the information flow is coming in. You know, I think nowadays, think about the world itself, and everything's coming in through your senses, your sight, your sound, your touch, and there's just that beautiful flow, that beautiful connection coming in, that information flow. But if you are on alcohol, or if you're on any other drug, then that flow, no matter what is coming in, has got to be processed. You know, your thoughts have got to be processed. And that takes time. So, you know, there's other things like tiredness that can cause it. I mean, when you get up in the morning, you're a lot brighter, and you're a lot, you know, your brain is much more capable of processing information than it is towards the end of the evening when you're tired. When you've gone through a shock experience, your brain sort of collapses a little bit, and the processing will slow down. The same thing if you're running off your emotions. If you're running off high off emotions instead of thinking about things, your processing speeds can slow down or can be interfered with. And this is what I'm talking about. You know, we're talking about a bottleneck in your brain system. So you're gonna the rate that you process things, the rate that you process information coming in, the rate that you process your thoughts is going to depend on the weakest link. And if your alcohol causes a weak link in the chain, do you get what I mean? So I think that's probably, I don't know if it's a better analogy. Look, it's all about choices and trade-offs. You know, every one of us has got the same amount of time in the day, 24/7. And it's what you do with that time that matters. The older you get, the less time that you've got to play with, right? So if you spend your time sitting in a corner playing with yourself, right, you're gonna, as opposed to doing something which is going to improve yourself, then your potential, your overall potential is reduced. Now, I look at potential from the perspective of that you have a certain amount of potential as you stand right now. And depending on what you do with the next minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, hour, 2 hours, 2 days, whatever it is, depends on what your potential is going to be. So if you piss away that 2 days, then your potential is reduced by that because you can't get that back. Do you get what I mean? So, you know, I think when you're trying to get to that best possible version of yourself, your growth potential is all important. The older you get, the more important it is if you want to grow to be the person that you want to be. Then it's a good thing, you know, just to have that. So I think if you think backwards from the best possible version of yourself, in order to get to that best possible version of yourself, you need to be able to think clearly. You need to be able to think smart, to think better, you know, to process better, in order to get to the best potential that you can get. And if you work yourself backwards from that, the more you do to reduce that processing potential, the less you can do with what you've got. You know, and you get a lot of people blame the tools. You know, we're all, you're born with what you've got. You can't change your brain. You can't change, you know, the organics of your brain is what it is. You know, you can't change your height. You can't change, you know, you can change your weight to a certain degree, but there's a lot about yourself that you can't change. You know, you can't change the genes per se, but you can alter by a lot of your lifestyle choices how those genes are expressed. You can change how your life develops, you know, how your potential develops, how the possibilities for yourself, how they come about, or whether or not they come about. And it's, you know, like I said again, choices and trade-offs and the opportunity cost. So if you sit in the corner playing with yourself, the opportunity cost is using that time to as something which is going to create something better for you next week or next year. Do you get what I mean? So alcohol really affects that processing. It affects the thinking, and because it affects the thinking, it affects the actions. Because it affects the actions, it affects the outcomes. And because it's affecting all your outcomes, it's affecting whether or not you get to that best possible version of yourself. So I hope that makes sense. If you haven't subscribed, like I said, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 50,000 subs. And if you want to comment while we're live, then you can hit the join button down below. How you doing, BM? You can hear loud and clear. Good. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is pathologically bored and lonely. So I can't stop drinking. That's another one of the comments now. This one was from, see if I can find it. This is from Alan Smithy, and he says, "This is why I cannot stop drinking. I am pathologically bored and lonely most of the time." There was a couple of good comments with this, actually. Mimi said, "Alan, you will not be bored in sobriety, and it doesn't take long. I'm almost 40 days, and I feel amazing with tons of energy. I always like to go fishing. Now I fish every day, keep my house clean, my car clean, my garage, etc." Okay. This is another one of those things where you have to ask yourself, do a before and after test, and you can only really do that once you've stopped drinking alcohol, I think. Before you stop drinking, go back to that brain slowing down again and the way it's processing things. Over time, I think you just get used to this slowness. If you think about when you're drunk, when you have a drink, everything slows down. Your brain slows down, your speech slows down, you're not capable of walking properly, you're all slanty all over the place, your thinking process is just slow. I think your hearing is affected, everything's affected. You drink enough and the organs in your body start to shut down, so it shows you what kind of a depressing effect it has on you. So that same effect is going on in your brain. Alcohol is one of the few substances that can get past the blood-brain barrier, and the blood-brain barrier is there to protect your brain against viruses and all kinds of shit that's going around your system that shouldn't be going into your brain. And it's one of the things, pure alcohol, that you don't want going through into your interfering with those delicate balances of chemicals. So imagine what that's happening once, and then we get over the hangover, we get over the sickness the next day, and we think that everything's gone back to normal, but it hasn't. It can't, because it takes a bit longer for your brain to come around, and you get used to this over time. So you get used to your brain running on at a slower pace, processing things slower. That's why it's such an insipid habit, because you don't really notice the effects. If you could go back to the first day, if you could see yourself in a year's time or something like that, 2 years time, and you saw the difference in yourself, it's really only when I stopped drinking and I was off the alcohol for a few weeks that I really noticed the difference in how my brain was processing things differently. And like I say, it gets used to this slowness. It takes time for it to develop, but it also takes time the other side as well to unfog, to go back to normal. I think when you're drunk, we're entertained by much simpler, more basic stuff. And this happens again over time. When I remember going to the pub and just listening to the same bollocks, same bullshit from people, and I'm not saying that they were, it was idiotic conversation from idiots, but I was also one of the idiots that was there saying the same things. You're just saying the same things day after day after day, talking about the same crap, sitting in the same stool, and you like that. It becomes a ritual. It becomes part of that relaxation process that you're going into. It becomes part of the habit for you, and you start stripping out one or two of these things, and it feels uncomfortable. Another part of the insipidness of the habit. Your brain needs a certain amount of stimulation in order to grow. It's much like a muscle, much like anything that you do. It needs stimulation in the right direction, otherwise you're not going to grow. And with alcohol, that stimulation is just not there, because, as I say, the depressant effect of alcohol is pulling you down in so many different ways, but most particularly in this way, with your thoughts. And without alcohol, your brain starts to process faster, but it takes a while to get away from that drinker's mind. And when I talk about the drinker's mind, I'm talking about you're within that habit, you're thinking in that sense of a drinker, you're thinking in the sense of this is what I do in the evening, this is what I do to entertain myself, this is what I do to relax, this is what I do to socialize. And your brain is, the more you drink, the more your brain thinks along a certain wavelength. It thinks along certain thoughts, and it takes a while for you to uncouple yourself from that. That the habit of drinking is not just one habit, it's several different habits that are under that same instant gratification habit, that same alcohol habit. So, that drinker's mind, it just, once you get rid of that, it gives you a much wider scope for life and for thinking. And that's the boredom aspect of this. But if you take the loneliness aspect of the same thing with alcohol, people are selfish when they drink or take any drug, because you're the only one who's getting the buzz from it. Do you get what I mean? It's you're on a different wavelength to everyone else. A self-dummification. When you're talking to other people who are on the same, they're drinking pint for pint. That's why rounds are so popular. You drink the same as me, and if you drink the same as me, we're on the same wavelength all the time. We're talking on the same bullshit. So, if you're lonely for good company, ask yourself, who wants to be with somebody whose brain is running on half steam, slow? They're slurring everything, slurring their words, because their thoughts are slurring. Who wants to be with somebody who spends so much money on booze, who has that baser level of thinking? The only other people that want to be with that are other drinkers, other people who are on that same level. And it becomes that vicious cycle that the more you drink, the more boring you get, the more you want to drink, because the people that you're with are boring. Life is boring. Without alcohol, life becomes less boring. You become less selfish over time. Time is one of the great healers. Like I said before, that it's the processing. That processing of your thoughts becomes better, and you have time to invest in yourself and in other people. So people see that. When you care about yourself more, other people will care for you more, because they can see that. It's like that integrity. They can see, people spot integrity a mile away. People can spot whether somebody's not taking care of themselves, and that can push a lot of people away, the people that you want to be with. So I think over time you become less lonely because of that. And without drink, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I can't say that I've ever been lonely without a drink since I stopped drinking alcohol. I used to be terribly alone sometimes when I was drinking. And a lot of that time was when I was with other people, because you're not capable of being with them. When you're locked up in your own brain and your thoughts are just so on that level, just not on a you're not thinking straight, you're not processing things straight. When you're thinking like that, there's no communication, there's no proper communication. Only with other drunken people, only with people who are on the same level as yourself, and what's the point in that? So the only way to do this is to break the chain. If you're bored and you're lonely without alcohol, then you know what you have to do. It's difficult to get away from it. It's difficult to get away from that drinker's mind, to get away from the discomfort, to get away from the pain that that mental pain that you can't shut up anymore. You've got to deal with it. But if you want to get to that best possible version of yourself in your life, reach your potential, then you've got to do it. and it's worthwhile pushing yourself through the narrow discomfort that you're going to push yourself through. And if it's happening more and more, if you can't deal with it, then you need to get help outside of that. Alcohol's not going to deal with it. There's no other drug that's going to deal with it. You need to get therapy, and oftentimes it takes having yourself in a situation where you haven't got a crutch to turn back on. Then you might go and get the therapy, spend the money that you were spending on alcohol and on therapy. I mean, you can get there's always people that you can turn to. So listen, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 50,000 subscriptions. Just gonna have a drink and then we'll go on to the third part. Okay. This third part is about basically hurting the people that you love and the people that you care about. This was actually a nice this from Dominic Husband. Dominic's been around for a while, and is somebody that really comments quite a lot. When I quit 3 years ago, 3 years and 1 month, your videos helped so much, particularly in the earlier days. I'm so glad I quit before these lockdowns began. I have friends who've drunk their way through restrictions and I've always stayed sober. The hardest thing for me is worrying about the people I have hurt down through the years. Through my drinking, it brought about a lack of empathy in me. I regret how cold and cowardly I could be. Part of me wants to find these people after restrictions and make sure that they're all right, but the other part says to leave well enough alone and move on. I think that's a really nice quote. It's an honest quote, an honest description, I think, of what a lot of people are feeling. And when you stop drinking alcohol, I mean, I think one of the things that you have to put into your mind that it is what it is. Your past is what it is. There's nothing really that you can do about it. It's I sometimes think people have this need to apologize because of their own guilt, and a lot of their own guilt is because of what they're doing to themselves and that inner conflict that they have, the pain that they've caused and are causing themselves. And I know this because I've been through it. You've got to make the changes happen. The best way to make the changes happen is to stop doing the thing that's causing all the problems in the first place. But we try and deal with that by cutting down, using moderation as like another hidey hole that we can hide into. We cut down a little bit, won't stop doing the thing that we need to do. We'll try and be like children still and try and fool ourselves and delude ourselves that having a little bit will work and B will last. If you're trying to get a buzz from drinking, and that's what other reason is there to drink alcohol? Anyway, I'm not going to get into that one. But if you're trying to get a buzz, you're not getting that end result. So it creates a lot of this conflict within yourself. It creates a lot of bad feeling within yourself, and sometimes it's easier to turn around and say, well, yeah, all these other people that I've hurt, and beat up on yourself in so many different ways. And that's one of the big ways that we do it. We can blow things out of proportion. A lot of the time we can't even remember what we were doing or what we were saying when we were bad. We just remember the reactions from afterwards, and they stay with us. There's certain moments in my life from my drinking life that I can remember really happy moments, but the happiness was generally about the situation that we were in. And I can remember really sad moments, and the sad moments were always about the alcohol and what I'd done. And I was sad about what I'd done, what I'd said. So the only way to get away from this is when you make those big changes happen in your life. And for the people that, if you're trying to apologize for people, concentrate and focus your mind on the people that you care about. because there's no point in going out there and trying to find people that you don't care about, that don't really mean much to you. You know, because I don't think it's going to ease your conscience anyway. Your conscience will be eased much more by you changing into a person who just doesn't do that anymore. And then the people that you care about, when they see the change that you've made in your life, when they see that you're determined, and that you're improving your own self, that you're committed to improving your own self, that you have that responsibility, that personal responsibility, you know, it's not linked to alcohol. This is linked to you as a person, as you as an integral whole, and in how you, how that emanates to other people, how other people see that. Do you get what I mean? So, it's like proving that you mean it. I mean, saying shit is nothing, you know. So apologizing is nothing. You know, you can apologize to somebody and go back to it again, do the same shit. I mean, how many times have we done that as drinkers? You know, the boy who cried wolf. You know, when you push yourself through tough times, when you push yourself through the discomfort of what needs to be done, not to stop drinking alcohol, but to change the way you think about alcohol, and to change the way you think about yourself, to change how much you respect yourself, and that you wouldn't put this shit inside your body anymore. That's the hard work that you need to do. So when you push yourself through those tough times, and once you've got done with that, it makes it so much easier to forgive yourself, to be kind to yourself. Do you know, when you've pushed yourself through these times, and you've got put some distance between yourself, put a lot of distance between yourself and the old behaviors, and you've changed your thinking enough, then you're much better capable as a person. You're much better able to handle things. Do you know? You're much better, more capable of handling yourself, your life, other people, your emotions. You know, when I was drinking, it was the emotional stuff. You know, the emotions used to flip over, and all rational thought went out the window, and my emotions took over. And it was either feeling sorry for myself, or, you know, like a roller coaster, and no control over anything. And that's all changed since I stopped drinking alcohol, you know. It's just flipped back over again. It takes time before you I mean, I think a lot of the time you have to come to terms of which emotions you've repressed, which emotions, I think the emotions that have become linked to alcohol, we care about those more so in the beginning, because they're the emotions that we want. You know, we want to feel happy. We're all the time trying to chase pleasure and avoid pain. So the avoiding pain part of it, you know, the repressed emotions take a while to bubble back to the surface, and then you start dealing with these later on. But it's once you start dealing with these with a rational mind, and you're thinking about them, you can allow them to come back up, and you can deal with them in the moment. It becomes much more easier to handle yourself, and much more easier to deal with life. You know, another thing with this is nobody's without fault. You know, so you have to be kind to yourself. And, you know, like I said, the easier, the further you get away from alcohol, the easier it becomes to be kind to yourself. You know, think about the amount of shite that you've heard off other people when they've been drinking. Even the person who is meek and kind and wouldn't say boo to somebody else, put enough spirits, whiskey into them or whatever, and see how much they turn. And we've all seen this with so many different people. So, you know, and I'm not using it as an excuse for anyone, you know, it is what it is. You know, when I was drinking alcohol, when I was drinking in the pubs, I was always associated with other drinkers. They were the same as me, and, you know, the stuff that went on in the pub stayed in the pub. What happened when you were drunk stayed there, you know, because everyone was in the same state, and the next day it was always, you know, oh yeah, you were drunk. You know, but when you do that to somebody who's not drinking, it means so much more. You know, I mean, when I was drinking, I could be mean, but not. I don't think I was ever really badly, horribly mean. You know, where I think there's a certain level that you cross over where you just say something to somebody, and there's no stepping back from that. I don't think I ever got to that stage. Bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. More, it was leave me the fuck alone. Don't come near me. You know, I'm whatever. You know, you go over there and do your own thing in a very drunken, slurish, falling down sort of a way. Selfishness more than anything else. But I think once you start moving towards that best version of yourself, it becomes easier and easier to accept yourself, to respect yourself, to have time for yourself. You know, the more you can have time for yourself and for your own thoughts and developing yourself as an individual, developing your potential. You know, you have, it's that raising up of your own self-esteem. You know, think about what alcohol does to you. You know, you know that you're poisoning yourself. You know, I feel sad thinking about it, you know, thinking about myself and the way I was doing it, and I knew it. And as you're drinking, you know, towards the end of my drinking, I used to sit on my own listening to sad music because I felt that bad about myself and just about what I knew I was doing to myself. You know, I think, but the higher up you go within yourself, get away from this shit, get away from the poison, the more self-esteem you have for yourself, the more interested you become in other people, you know, and it becomes a give and take. It becomes a relationship. It becomes friendships, you know, you just begin to enjoy life, you know. You know, when you're doing your best, you know you're doing your best for yourself, then it's easier to help other people, right? And when you're helping other people, it makes you feel good, you know, and it's a vigorous cycle. So, all right, I'm going to finish there for today. Like I said, we're trying to hit to that 50,000 subscribers. So for my own ego, please hit the subscribe button. If you want to comment or ask questions while we're live on any of the future ones, then you click on the join below button. There's extra members videos and there's badges and there's all kinds of stuff like that. So take care of yourself, and I will speak to you again very soon. Onwards and upwards. Take care. Bye now.